Okay, so the first one is just converting fractions, decimals, and percents and using a hundreds chart. So the first thing we need to do is we need to actually look at the question and we need to read it properly. So when I have 0.8, if I read it as 0.8, that doesn't do me any good mathematically to help me with this question. But if I read that as 8/10, then all of a sudden I know that my fraction here is 8/10. Well, I've got 100 squares here. So that's not going to do me a lot of good. I want to make sure that I have it so that I have 100. So I'll multiply them both by 10 by 10, because that means it'll all be out of 100. Whatever I do to the top for a fraction, I do to the bottom. So then I get 80/100. And then my percent, of course, we know now is 80%, because percent means per 100. So that means now, when I go to color my stuff in, let's just find a nice color here. We'll go sort of a light yellow to color in. And I've got 1, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. And I want all the rest that's colored in too. Okay, I'm not going to spend the time right now, but so that would be what 8/10 or 80/100 looks like. Okay, the second one, it's got to cut off on my, ooh, there we go. It gave us 10%. Let's make that a little bit thinner again. There we go. It gave us 10%. So if it gave us 10%, we know that percent is per 100, so my fraction is automatically going to become 10/100. But I don't have 100 here. If I count these, I only have 10 of these ones. So I really want to take this and I want to try and see if can I make it into out of 10 instead. Well, if I divide my 100 by 10, I get 10. So I'm going to divide my 10 by 10 as well, and I'm going to get 1. So that becomes 1/10. Oh, I can do that. My tenths column is right here, so it's 1/10. Now, when I go to color in my picture here, I have 1/10 that I'm coloring in, which is right there. All done. If I had only 8 squares colored in over here, and I looked at that, that's going to be 8/100. This decimal here doesn't say 8/100. Okay, it's that reasonableness of looking back and going, does this work for me? All right, so for this one, I'm looking at my ratios, and I need to give 2 ratios that describe the following letters. So if I look at this, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 A's and 1, 2, 3 B's. So you know me, I like to write down that I've got 5 A's and 3 B's, because that way I can use it. But you know what? I've already written down my first ratio. It's my ratio of A to B is 5:3. Well, I could switch that around and do B to A and have 3:5. I could also, if I want, this is kind of hard to see, I'm going to flip over to my black pen here. I could also, if I want, if I added these together, I'd have 8. So I could have my A's to all as well, and that would be A's I have 5 of, all is 8, so it could be 5 to 8, or I could do the same with B's, which would be 3 to 8. I could do them flipped around, so it could be 8 to 5 for all to A. So there's all different kinds you could have put there. Okay, now let's go to question 2. Suppose you had twice as many letters. What fraction of the letters would be A? Well, if we double them, so we've made them go double, that means there's going to be 10 A's and 6 B's. So most of you got the fact that we had 10 A's on the top, but the fraction of all the letters would be A. So the denominator on here, or the bottom of my ratio, is going to be 16. Yes, for those of you who are going into lowest terms, you could have put 5/8 as well. Then, suppose you had twice as many letters. Again, we are going to have 10 A's and 6 B's. What fraction of the letters would be B? Again, it's what fraction of all the letters. So that's going to be 6/16. Or for those of you who are still with me, you could also have used 3/8. Either of those work. Okay, so in this one, we're going from decimals to fractions, but we have a little rounding that we have to do in some of them. So the first one, we have 9/10. So we need to make that into hundredths. So that's going to be 9, but we need to put something in the hundredths column again. So we'll just put a 0 there. Take it into a proper fraction. You can use the proper fraction either from here or from here. Either one of these will work, and as long, again, as we read it in proper place value. Remember I told you back in September, October, how important place value is? If we read these in proper place value, then this fraction is really easy. It's 9/10 or 90/100. Okay, second question here, we have 83 hundredths. I'm going to put that into a fraction first because that's the easiest. 83 hundredths, so 83/100. Now I need to take this to a tenths. Now that is my tenths column, and so if I bring this over here and I put it like this, I'm in hundredths. I don't want to be in hundredths, I want to be in tenths. So I'm going to underline my tenths, I'm going to go next door. That 3 tells me to drop it. Okay, so remember the rounding rules. 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. We drop it. We drop whatever comes after the number that we're going to go until. If it's 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, then the number that we're working on, in this case the number in our tenths column, will go up by 1. Okay, so that's going to come 0.8. Okay, so the third row along here. If we have a look, we have a fraction, but it doesn't have a 10 or a hundredths on the bottom. So that's what we're going to do is, you can either take this and put it in a calculator and go 3 divided by 5, but really we don't need to do that because we can just multiply both of them by 2 and we're going to become 6/10. Okay, if we multiply the top and the bottom by the same thing. Now 6/10, we're going to just bring that straight over here to 6/10, and then we know that when we're putting it into hundredths, it's 61/100 because it's the same. It just has a 0 on the end. All right, if we look at 75 hundredths, that's 75/100, and that is perfectly correct. For those of you who are my go-getters, you can look and realize that there's something that'll go into 75 that'll also go into 100, so we can actually make this into a smaller form if we want. We can reduce it. We can see that 5 can, but for those of you who think money, you can get both 75 cents and $1 out of quarters. So I'm going to reduce both of those. I'm going to divide both the top and the bottom by 75, and I'm going to get 3/4. Now, when I have my 75 and I want to change it to my tenths, I'm going to bring that down to the bottom here. So 0.75. I want to go only into tenths. I look next door. My 5 tells me I've got to round up. So that means my 7 is going to turn into an 8. So this also becomes 0.8. Okay, next one along. Well, I've got 1/10 here, so that's going to become 10/100. And then this either can be 1/10, which is my 1/10, or it can become my 10/100. Either one is correct. The 1/10 is just in reduced terms. Okay, now I have 1/2. I'm going to multiply both of those by 5/5, and I'm going to get 5/10, which is 5/10. That makes this one nice, 5/10. And then here I'm just going to change that into 50/100, or just add that 0 at the end.